And welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of June 22nd, 2015. Welcome to the site to you new members, and welcome back to the old members. The Ask Videomail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it. So please send your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, believe me. And it is the best way to get the most out of the site. Speaking of getting the most out of the site, don't forget, I'm going to mention this every time for a little while, at least. Check out our Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Arconics, if you want to see some really awesome stuff going on. Let me just put it up here so you can see. At our stream, we are animating, creating games. We're doing a lot of stuff all day. So just come on by, check it out, twitch.tv/Arconics, and we'll hang out and we'll have a great time, okay? So speaking of getting the most out of the site, if that is your MO, which I hope it is, you can get even more animation content by hanging out with us every day, Monday through Friday on the stream. So I just wanted to put that up there before we get to this week's question. Let's check out the question. Here it is. Good question. Okay, so that was kind of a long question. I had Nicole sort of pare down a larger question that she had asked after seeing a workflow from an animator, I think in an Animation Mentor newsletter. And I wanted to sort of explain a little bit the difference between, especially for the people who are new here and don't know what tempo is. I want to explain the difference between tempo and other workflows just really quickly, but also ask specifically, because some people do have a layered approach that could work really well with tempo, but there's one major difference, and that is this. As Nicole pointed out, a layered workflow normally takes the core, either the center of gravity, the cog, master, root, whatever, and it works out that motion before doing things like overlapping the spine, limbs, arms and legs movement, certainly down to the smaller details like the neck and head, and then the facial animation, all that stuff. So a layered approach is basically a way of going from the very broad to the very specific. A pose-to-pose approach, on the other hand, kind of takes the entire frame holistically as a whole, and tries to rely on the strength of posing to get that animation to be as communicative as possible. But the opposite of a pose-to-pose approach is not a layered approach. Two things can be opposite to a third. All right, A and B can both be opposite to C. And so here's the main difference. With a layered approach, you're taking that cog or that root or that main control, and you're using it, you're animating it, because the amount of influence that the broad controls and the main movement through the scene has on the smaller, that's the flow of influence. You have to get that right in order to get everything else working correctly. So for many people, for many animators, animating it in that order and then going back over and doing a smaller control or a smaller influence or whatever, all those things, sort of acknowledge the importance of moments, but it's not a direct approach to animating the moments. So the difference that I pointed out to Nicole when she first sent me this email was that in tempo, we might change what the helper object is really actually representing. So in the F-check example, I think I showed you guys in the very first tempo lecture, where that guy used the F-check tool, and middle mouse dragged his mouse to do, some sort of like almost like mouse capture animation. The first swipe was the sword, and the second motion was the head landing on the ground. So it was slice, dun dun dun, right? But it changed, didn't it? It first represented the sword, that energy, that movement, that force, that sort of lizard brain kind of reaction that you're going for is the sword swooshing and then the head falling. And that, to me, more accurately represents how an audience views animation than the layered approach. Okay? And it more accurately it gives the animator a more accurate prediction and control over that reaction as well. Meaning, you want the audience to be reacting to the thing that you created. You set them up. You're creating this landscape for them to walk through in your scene. And you want them turning at this moment and saying, wow, look at that beautiful thing. And then taking a few steps and turning and, wow, look at that beautiful thing. You don't want them looking backwards the whole time and then smacking into something else, and then by the time they turn around, it's already gone. You want to control their eye, you want to control their focus, and you want to control the energy of the shot. So tempo, the way that it works, it much more accurately, by using a helper object to be the main, the timing of the energy, the major force on screen, the moving shape, the changing silhouette, whatever it is, that energy, the helper object representing that energy more accurately gives the animator, a more accurate prediction and way to control the reaction. All right, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, I'm going to take the hips or the waist or the cog or the root or whatever you call it and just animate that and then go back and do the legs. Because what if there is something like a sword that the character is swinging, and the other character's head is, popping off and landing on the ground and rolling. If you animate that from the hips outwards, you will have a very well animated action with good weight and with all of the major pieces working right before you get down into the nitty-gritty, before you get down into details that you shouldn't get bogged down with before it's too early. All right? And so the layered approach is great for keeping the most important things up front, but it doesn't give you that ability to perfect the energy, the part of your shot that's going to actually affect the core of your audience and stimulate them. It doesn't give you access to that from the get-go, right in the beginning of your shot, the way the tempo does. So, listen, I love tempo. I love tempo. There are plenty of animators out there that have workflows that work for them that are the opposite of tempo. Okay, there are. All right, there are animators. For instance, when I was working at Weta, a lot of the animators on King Kong were ex stop motion people. All right, and talk about pose to pose. They not only worked pose to pose, but they worked frame by frame pose to pose. They were taking their, some of these guys go all the way back to Gumby. Okay, so some of these people have been animating for 35, 40 years. By the time I was at Weta, which is 10 years ago. Okay, so these are absolute ingrained workflows. There's no getting that, that to change for that animator, and I don't want to, and it doesn't matter because it's working and they're doing great work. and they've figured out a way to create the animation and then use the computer to more accurately or actually I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is, but they use the computer to edit their animation afterwards, right? So so Maya is the fact that Maya gives them in betweens. Like, they don't need those in betweens. They're like going like almost frame by frame and doing each frame like as a pose. And then if they need to, they can edit the animation non-linearly and let Maya fill in and really use it as a tool that would improve a stop motion animator's work, without a doubt. So that's kind of what's going on. Regardless, the point is I think that although I don't want to change everybody's workflow, if you are at the beginning, if you are still learning, if there is room for you to take some big workflow leaps, that tempo is really right for everybody. It is kind of a one-size-fits-all workflow in terms of the improvement that you can do at even the lowest levels. Because here's one thing that is important to, like, the How to Cheat in Maya series. In How to Cheat in Maya, we are it was Eric Luta first, and then he and I co-authored the next two books, and then I singularly authored the latest. But the How to Cheat series is based on getting the reader to a certain point in a very quick and easy way, and then letting them take the last step. Like, change the last setting and get that aha moment. So in other words, allowing people who may not be able to get to the level that you're showing them on their own yet, but giving them the chance to make those high-level decisions early on actually makes it so that they are more motivated and excited and are better animators at the end of it. So, like, one of the example scenes in the secondary action section, for instance, is a scene that is very simply animated, but some people who pick up the book might not be at that level yet. But they get to open up a scene that has some secondary action animated within it, and through the instruction in the book, change just a couple settings and see how drastic that change is to the performance. The performance entirely changes, all right? And that was way before tempo. But using animation layers, not to be confused with a layered approach, layered animation, but using animation layers and just sliding back and forth a keyframe that dials up and down like this little finger tapping motion, we allow the reader to try 100 different choices. If they're interested and they know how beneficial doing those different tests are to becoming a better animator, they'll do 200, they'll do 500, because there are literally infinite number of choices, right? So like 3 frames forward, let's add 3 frames to the end, 2 frames back on the beginning, and then 5 frames later on the end, just like pushing it around and just seeing how does this change the performance. That's an instinct. That's a muscle you have to train, okay? Because you not only need to learn how to make a change quickly and create your animation in a way that changes and iterations are very fast, rapidly available, but you also need to be able to look at it and see is this better or is this worse? And if it's worse, just do a new one. If it's better, okay, keep that in mind and then do another one, right? So you'll watch me while I'm working. I'll say like, okay, well, I'm just going to do a little bit of experimenting now. And you've seen this in video mails and in lectures. I'm like, okay, let's just try a couple, just real quick. We'll try a few. It takes me 30 seconds to a minute to try like 4 or 5 different ones. And most of the time, actually, my first choice wasn't the right one, wasn't the best one. It's 2 or 3 iterations into it. I'm like, okay, well, this is better. Let's go with this. Okay. So I'm glad you sent this question in, Nicole. Thank you for sending it in. I would say that in general, though, I don't think that a layered approach is a stepping stone to tempo. I don't think a layered approach is really in practice the best way to access the kinds of things that I think you should be focusing on. If you already have taken a layered approach and you're finding you're actually getting to a point where your animation is tweakable and editable and you can experiment on it, maybe a little bit of tempo there, then fine, yeah, keep on using it. So don't throw out your workflow. But in general, there's nothing quite like tempo. All right, tempo is its own thing. So I will still sing its praises. And if you're confused at all about anything I said, please send me an email. I get very rarely do I get emails asking questions about the video mails. And that's a resource that is available to you. I'm not sure if I've ever made that clear, but I want to have a conversation. I want to talk to you about the resources. And even better yet, if you post into I'm subscribed, I think, to the entire category lecture discussion. So if you want to post something, post it in the forums. And there's a link below this video that says, have a question, or want to discuss this lecture, post it in the forums. That's what we should do. All right, and we'll just talk about it. So that was a great question. I'd like to see your guys' questions. Remember, every single question you send in, I add 2 days to your subscription. So you could presumably, if you just every couple of days sent me a batch of 5 or 6 questions, you'd stay on KennyRoy.com completely for free for the rest of your life. That's something I offer. You do a little bit of work, then I want to keep you around. That's why I want to do it. I want the people who are really thinking about it and working hard on their animation. I want to keep you here. All right, I'm motivated to do that. So that was fun. Please send your questions. I'm looking forward for a lot more. Check out Tempo. Check out all the lectures on Tempo if you haven't already. They're in the store, super cheap, and you can get your hands on those resources. I'm Kenny Roy. Good luck with your animation. As always, rock on.